Y'all, good, good, good. You're filling out the poll. Just want to get a feel for what the crowd is doing, what they're looking at. And then I'm going to show you the big accident that happened. We'll talk about that. And then we'll also talk about the old school strategy of, the FMCSA. It's their job to vet carrier to make sure carriers are safe on the road, not my job. There are some companies out there that, stand away from safety data and they say it's not our job, it's the government's job. And we're not going to look at safety data. And we're going to talk about that today and how that works. Now, whatever I say, I don't forget that I'm a lawyer. So I get really passionate about safety too. And I used to work at Schneider, Beerly did too. So we get really passionate about safety. And don't forget that like every brokerage and shipper, different lanes, different needs. Y'all are going to have different safety protocols and different ways of vetting carriers. Don't feel like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. But I do want to talk about those situations where we're not looking at safety data and whether it's a good idea or not. For your business, you decide. So those of you, I'm letting you trickle in. We've got a poll. Make sure you fill it out. And Melanie Crane is with us in the house. So we'll make sure that she's chatting with everybody in the messages. If you want to learn more about carriers, sure, you can message Melanie. She's really great. She's got a cute doggy too, really cute dog. All right, so for those of you still trialing, and we still have a lot of people coming in, we got a poll going. Make sure the chat is open as usual so that you can see what some of the advanced people, we got a lot of advanced people on these webinars, what they're doing. Don't ever feel insecure about what you're doing because every brokerage is different. Let me get my little presentation going. And then we can also talk about the poll results. Actually, wait a second. Should I give you guys? I'll do this. I'm going to give people time to do the poll because I see people still coming in. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk about the accident that we are going to discuss today. So we will do Chrome share. I hope I don't mess this up. And here's the accident. And I think, and I'm hoping you guys can see this okay. It went really fast. This literally just happened yesterday. It's an interesting, the guy never even really tapped on his brakes at all. Just kept plowing in. So that is the accident that happened yesterday. I hope you guys saw that. Terrible accident. And we're going to talk about that today. When I used to work at Schneider, I used to handle all their litigation. Best job ever. Coolest company. Loved them. And it was surprising to me how many accidents our Schneider truck drivers were involved in when other trucking companies would slam into the back of a whole bunch of cars stopped, especially construction zones. That's a really big deal. It happens so much and people die. Big fires. It's terrible. And most of the time it's truck drivers watching porn. They're on their phone. They're tired, falling asleep at the wheel. But this particular truck driver was drunk. And that's unfortunate. And so that's why the media has really, really caught on to this one and has been spreading it. I feel bad for any broker and shipper who's involved because it's in California. Terrible jurisdiction to be in for a lawsuit. So Andrew says, Andrew Henry, that's a great name, by the way. I named my cat Henry. I love that name. A driver in the UK just got arrested for the same thing, but is watching porn. Yeah, that happens a lot in the US. A lot of accidents. It's crazy. And so I know a lot of people say, this is the government's job. The government should step in. And it doesn't work like that. Did I just close out of all Chrome? Please no. Okay, give me 2 seconds to get back into Chrome so that I can show you guys this. Oh no, please don't do this to me. I thought I was going so smooth, and then there's always something that messes me up. So for those of you still piling in, make sure you take care of the poll while I pull up my presentation and we go ahead and talk about all the safety data We're going to talk about safety ratings. You know, people get those mixed up all the time. What the difference is between SMS and safety ratings and compliance reviews. That happens a lot, but we will talk about this. Teresa says not only was he drunk, he was illegal. And she is right about that. I believe when I looked it up this morning, this is what caught my eye. I think this is the carrier. Math on Transport, I think, 76555. Here's what caught my eye. Besides the glaring score of 32 points, which is terrible. So those of you who are synced up with MCP and Carrier Sure, I often say if the carrier falls below 40, it should be an automatic compliance review, because those are usually our carriers you've really got to watch out for. But when I click on DOT performance, I noticed that it was a satisfactory rating, you guys. 61224. So last year it got a satisfactory rating. So we are going to talk about that today too. Hopefully you guys can see all this. Let me know if you can't. And let me fill my screen here a little bit. Chat. Where's my chat? Okay. Oh, Andrew, I thought I saw somewhere that it was this guy. Let me pop this in here. But if anybody else thinks it's somebody else, oh, that was a different accent. Ooh, I hope it wasn't this guy because I just posted on LinkedIn about it. Yikes. Different accidents. Yeah, let me know if you guys know who the carrier is. But let's talk about it as a hypothetical, just in case. That way you guys, we have something to go along with the presentation too. So there are so many buttons, I apologize. Okay, hopefully you guys can see. Yeah, I thought Dustin said, how come the camera footage was available to the media so quickly? Most footage of crashes this magnitude don't surface until years later. I was surprised by that too. Very surprised. Must have leaked somehow. Okay, Rebecca says I'm right. Phew, that scared the heck out of me. So we're going to talk about safety ratings today, safety. And at the end, you guys let me know if you have any more like legal questions, things you want to talk about. And we can go from there too. Teo says this adds more fuel to the lawsuit, the conflict between Florida and California, the lawsuit that Florida filed against California, because California is issuing a lot of these non-domicile CDLs and things like that. But those of you who are new, make sure you have the chat open. You completed the poll. There's a lot of experts in here, and they're going to put a lot of good stuff in that chat while I'm talking. I am a longtime transportation attorney. I think everybody here probably knows that by now. Cassandra Gaines. I'm also the CEO of Carrier Sure. I also act as an expert witness across the country for defense and plaintiff attorneys on how to select a carrier, what's the industry standard for selecting carriers. And I hope that through that and all my work with Carrier Sure that I can make a difference in this industry. I want our trucking companies who do a great job to be illuminated. And I want those people who are not doing a great job to also be illuminated so that we can avoid them or use them maybe for just easy local shipments. Today's presentation, we're going to dive into why the FMCSA, like their safety ratings don't give you a full story. So just because you see satisfactory safety rating, don't feel all gushy and good inside and just give them a dedicated long haul lane. Nope, there's more to it than that. And we're going to talk about that. Some people in the crowd have a lot of experience with looking at carriers who have satisfactory and conditional and unrated, and they can probably help us weigh in too. Bottom line summary of where I go and what I tell people with this presentation is you look at safety ratings, you look at all the safety data, and you incorporate safety into your vetting process to avoid liability, of course, nowadays, to avoid bad PR for you and your customers, and then avoid poor performing carriers are going to be involved in theft, drop loads, other problems. So safety is so tightly correlated with how a carrier is going to do for you as well. And if you have questions, just throw stuff right in the chat. I always pay attention to it. And then, of course, I put on here our example situation. Hope Trans, do you guys remember that accident? That's another example situation. The driver was tired. I think the driver fell asleep. I might be an expert witness on that case as well. And that carrier had a lot of FMCSA issues too. Yes, Andrew, I believe they did just have their FMCSA ratings, their FMCSA authority revoked or put in conditional. All right, when people say ratings, they mean when the FMCSA labels a carrier satisfactory, conditional, unsatisfactory, or unrated. Those are your 4 ratings. Technically, unrated is not really rating, right? It's really satisfactory, conditional, unsatisfactory. And then what the FMCSA does is they go into the carrier and they do the compliance review. They look at all their logs, documents, DQ files, DM files, everything, drug and alcohol regulations that they have to follow. And then they sometimes label the carrier as satisfactory. You've completed everything. We'll put you satisfactory. Sometimes if you have a whole list of things you need to work on, you're put as conditional. And I should have put in the poll how many people use conditional carriers, because I am very passionate about that. Many of you who are used to me babbling on know that I do not believe in hiring conditional carriers for long haul shipments. I think that's very dangerous. Andrew says my company won't let us use conditional carriers, and I agree. I can't, as your defense attorney in the long back, I say this, I'm not, actually a defense attorney anymore, but back in the day I was. It's really, really hard for me to defend you on the stand when you've hired a conditional carrier. It's just so hard. I'm like working against the grain. It's terrible. Yeah, Beerly agrees. Lauren says, yeah, heck no. Andrew says nope. Teresa says nope. John, oh, rad man, definitely. Hazmat shippers, please pay attention. Woo, hazmat shippers on a whole nother level with some of this stuff. Most shipper broker agreements, great point, Phil. Won't even allow conditional carriers. Good point. And definitely, Erica Watts says no. Definitely no unsatisfactory carriers. No way. Oh my God, you're crazy. You don't know what you're doing if you're doing unsatisfactory. Jason says it's gotta be a no and a no. So there's a lot of our experts in the group in the chat that kind of weigh in on some of this stuff. Most of these ratings, they come in after a compliance review, but you guys, the FMCSA, they don't review every carrier. And we're going to go into a little bit more details of what happens when they do and how often, but over 80% of the carriers, they're unrated. So let's put a pause real quick. Tim Pool says hard no. Tim Pool's been doing this for a million years. Melissa has 2, no conditional. And David Pryor says his insurance says no conditional. There's a lot of good stuff in here. I'm going to put a pause on my share for just one moment. And it is risky. I agree with you to stop sharing because you never know what's going to happen. But I want to just look at this poll and give you some answers about the poll. So for those of you who completed the poll, I think we got 40 people who haven't done it yet though. So one of the first questions was how to use your company verify safety data. So many of you, equal amounts, have answered that you use the FMCSA websites, use the third party. You also use third party vetting platforms, and you use your onboarding platforms as well. That would be a lot of the group. We do have one soul in the group who was brave enough to answer, we don't look at safety data. And I'm sure there's more in there. That was just, we got people who didn't fill out the poll. So then we asked, what percentage of active carrier base do you believe has a safety rating of unrated? And so many of you believed that less than 25% of carriers have an unrated safety rating. And many of you believed also 25 to 50%, but most of you fell within the 50 to 75% range. And then I apparently left off the 75 to 100 or anything else, but you guys did a good job on that one. Most of you, fell right in within the range of what it is. It's 80%. So when you see a satisfactory rating, what is your first reaction was the question. So many of you say, assume the carrier is safe. Now that is a common theme. I've heard it in leadership. Some of the big companies I worked for or consulted for would help them develop their compliance programs. They would say, if it's satisfactory, you don't need to look at anything else, you can go. And that gave me a heart attack. Many people say, I see satisfactory, but I still check everything. I check safety, inspections, basics. That's good stuff. Some people say it depends how recent the rating is. I think that's a good answer too. And then let's see, what percentage of you guys, about 30% of you guys say I never rely on ratings alone. which is really good. Don't want to, honestly. Cassandra's opinion, you do everything you want. Each company is different. You don't want to rely on ratings at all. In fact, unless it's conditional or unsatisfactory, I don't even pay attention. If it's satisfactory, you can see that guy who just caused a death of 3 people last night, they had a satisfactory rating from last year. That didn't work. Which area would you like to improve in your vetting process? A lot of you want access to vetted data. Whew, don't we all? Less manual work, automation, and internal procedures and compliance, like more improvement there. So good stuff with the poll, but I wanted you guys to get a feel for where the group was with all of this stuff, because everybody's different. Chris Emmons, this is so Chris Emmons, who doesn't look at safety data in all caps. I know. There are companies out there who say we're not going to look at any safety data. And in fact, shippers will come to me and ask me, like, hey, which are these brokers looking at safety data? Which brokers are not? Because many shippers are like really focused on safety right now, and they don't want to be caught in a situation like last night's. Erica Watts says safety rating only reflects compliance at the time of review. Thank you, Erica. That was well said. It's not ongoing performance. It's just a snapshot of that moment in time. And I think that's very well said. And so let's go back to the presentation, because I have something to follow up with what Erica said. Erica taught me a lot of this, but you guys didn't know that. She's been doing this for so many years. Erica, we're like 15 years of doing this, I think. Let's go to the next page. Hopefully you guys can still see this. What triggers a compliance review? This is the other thing I'm always thinking about. When a carrier has a satisfactory rating, I'm always like, well, what got them to be there? Sometimes it's a carrier like Schneider, who's been in business forever and has 14,000 trucks. They're going to have a review. Like, that's just kind of given. And that one I kind of just, but other times I'm like, all right, how about that carrier got in the accident last night? What did you do in 2024 to get a compliance review that left you with a satisfactory rating? Because look at the list of things I've listed out for you guys of what triggers a compliance review. I mean, these are not good things. There's nothing in there that says you're doing a great job, so we did a compliance review for you, and we wanted to award you a gold star. No, it's actually the opposite. Crash or accident indicators. CSA scores are concerning. Complaints and whistleblower reports. I'm sure Chris Emmons is like about carriers on FMCSA website. I could just see you, Chris, being like, this carrier is terrible. You need to review them. New entry safety audit failure. Not completing the audit, failing it. This is not good stuff, you guys. So it's kind of like scares me. So I know that a lot of people are like, but they had a satisfactory rating. I'm like, what got them there? What got them there? Let me just go to the chats just to make sure that people Oh, Andrew says, I know brokers that don't vet carriers whatsoever after they've done it for 10 years, like they're small brokers. Now that's dangerous because you don't know if there's been wait, I should ask the group. I'll wait, actually, Andrew. I'm going to wait entirely on that because there's a rabbit hole. I'll stay on topic. Erica says, don't age me. Mike says you need to look at historical data, violations, out of service percentages, regardless of any, I agree, Mike, regardless of web safety. And you guys, I want you to know that everybody that's in this chat right now, they work for a wide range size of brokers, but I know them all and they have really lengthy experience and they do this every day, all day. So you've got we don't have like Joe Schmoes weighing in right now. These are people who do this and know what they're talking about. So Chris adds, Chris, you are asking the very question I'm going to get into, and Dustin already kind of ruined the question for me, which is let's talk about, well, first I'll tell you satisfactory. I did. This is what Erica said. It's a snapshot when you see satisfactory. So don't put a lot of weight on it, okay? But what Chris and Dustin are communicating about is the resources. And so I addressed this in this slide. I know I made this slide really busy, but I really wanted you guys something juicy to take home. But also when your leaders are challenging your compliance policies, I want you to have some facts to put behind it. The FMCSA oversees more than 750,000 active carriers. And don't forget, this includes DOT numbers. So this includes bus drivers, limos, all these hotshot companies. And then only 1% of all of these receive full compliance reviews. That's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I believe they have a budget of like $1 billion last time I looked, which isn't a lot because that has to include all their 1,000 state and federal investigators and then every other initiative they have going on. So what this means is that in no way, fashion, or form can FMCSA really monitor these carriers and really say to the public, these are safe carriers. Now, Cassie, I don't think you can request a review from the FMCSA, but things are changing a lot lately, so I could be wrong about that. And I think just because they have so limited resources, and since Trump came into office, they had more layoffs as well. So it's like less resources as well. So we can't rely on them to do these reviews. Let's also talk about unrated, because just because a carrier is unrated doesn't mean, hey, they're safe. They haven't gone on the FMCSA's radar yet, because no, that's not right either. That just means that they've been like flying under the radar or their time is coming. And I warn people about this often. There was a carrier on CarrierSure, and it's been reported recently as moving its operations to a whole nother company called DM World. And I've been warning people for a while about that carrier because you could tell, you could see their DOT performance is getting worse and worse and worse. And you're like, you're gonna get put out of business. You're gonna get a compliance review. But it takes a long time. Unrated does not mean they're unsafe also. So Tim Pool. So he's making it clear, you guys, doesn't mean like anything. So just disregard unrated. You see why I disregard ratings sometimes? Unless I see it's recent and I'm like, oh, what you been doing wrong? Many unrated carriers are new, they're small. And as you guys know, too many to audit. So talk to me about, yeah, Philip says, unrated carriers can be a good carrier or a ticking time bomb. I think that's really well said. Really well said. So how many of you feel comfortable, and we're going to go to the chat and see what people say in the chat, about a carrier that's recently completed their new entry audit? Does that make you feel like they're safe? Let's see what people say. It's kind of a tricky question, Cassandra. Not very nice. Woo, we are rolling in with immediate no's from people. Nope. Oh, Eric's with us. Hi, Eric. Eric's also a fellow lawyer. Nope. Nicholas says, what's a good satisfactory rating good for? I don't know, Nicholas. I agree. I'm trying to be nice on this webinar and not say that, but I'm with you. I agree. Positive step, but no, Erica says. Does anybody think, what do you guys think they do on the new entry audit? Do they actually like physically look at the trucks? Got some no ways. No, they don't, you guys. Nope. It's paper dig. Well said, Dustin. They just look at very basic information and definitely not the trucks, not the assets. And the kind of is like checking the box of like just a few things. So don't rely on that either. It, like Erica said, it will make you feel a little bit more comfortable because somebody had eyes on them recently, on their paperwork. But don't start thinking it's anything like a compliance review. It's definitely nowhere near like that. And I don't even think they do it in person. There's no way they can do it in person. I think it's like a virtual review or something like that. But don't quote me on that. But I wanted to pause and make sure people knew that. So a lot of you know a lot of this stuff, but you can pick up really good nuggets because a lot of these things you don't know. Or you keep this webinar where we record these public ones and you can share it with your new members of your team too. Because this is like hard to train compliance people on some of the stuff. We already know FMCSA can't keep up, so most carriers remain unrated. That's a lot of carriers, you guys. And you know this. That's why relying on those ratings. We got it. Okay, so now we know we see satisfactory rating, and like you guys kind of figured out, ratings don't really mean much. So I'm hoping we have now pushed that aside. So anybody who's like really putting a lot of weight on that, or anybody who is not looking at safety at all, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I hope we can push aside that safety rating thing. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've seen in contracts where shippers have been like, you can only use carriers with satisfactory rating. Have you guys ever seen that? I have. And I'm like, I can't help myself. I go right back to the carrier. Eric says yes all the time, all the time. Yeah. And I'm like, well, you actually, I was like, you don't want us to use only satisfactory carriers by any means, unless they're like the big ones that have been around for a million years. Um, you want us to use the unrated ones or the satisfactory ones with lots of years of experience. So Mark Funk says ratings serve one purpose: to immediately weed out confirmed issues. Unsatisfactory conditionals, hard no. Everything else just means you can continue to vet them. Really good summary. Really good summary. Okay, Radman hits on the really important piece. He says the real challenge comes when a senior management does not understand this concept and wants to low bid everything as a time bomb. And that is very true. You guys think about how hard this is to talk about it in this group where everybody's super advanced. Imagine explaining it to a carrier sales VP or CO who's just been booking loads his or her own whole life and doesn't fully understand something like this. That would be so hard to be like, I know you feel comfortable, but no. I wanted to give you something else too. Andrew, I feel as though Andrew has like me today. He should be running this webinar. Andrew, this is what I say to everybody in compliance. And maybe I learned it from Erica, but he says sometimes you just need to let the claim happen and then they get used to it. He's right. So if you are having a hard time with leadership now, you just need to sit back and wait for something to go wrong. Give them enough rope to hang themselves and let them understand what happens. Like Kanister, I call Kanister the professor. And it's because he's been doing this for so long and running such high volume lanes. He like everything has bit him in the ass. So I comfortably know that even though he's also on the sales side, that he just doesn't make the moves normal salespeople do because he has been in these miserable moments where a carrier has held his loads hostage or damaged everything. And so he knows. And that's the learning experience. We kind of have to wait around for our leaders to do. Here's something else a leader might tell you. This is very old school. Back in 2012, I was a baby attorney and I knew jack shit. And I knew jack shit, but I was trying. And I followed what all the old transportation lawyers said as well. And it was, hey, we don't look at brokers and shippers don't look at safety data. It's the FMCSA's job to ensure safety. And if you open that door and start looking at safety data, oh, you're going to regret it. It's going to open it's going to have like all these questions from plaintiff's attorneys. Why didn't you see this? Why didn't you do that? It's an argument. It's an argument, but it's old. And I made you guys this slide because it's not the FMCSA's job to ensure safety. They've never said our job is to make sure the roads are completely safe. All carriers are safe. You've never actually heard them say that. They say safety a lot, but really their job is to give carriers the minimum standards, operating authority and insurance. And they don't even do insurance correct. We all know that. We can't look on their site for insurance. So the old don't go down the rabbit hole theory, Teresa says. Yep. And so I stopped believing that for many reasons, mainly because I had some moments like Kanister did, some painful ones. So the FMCSA sets minimum standards, you guys. And they're, like Erica said, they're a snapshot in time because the FMCSA is incapable. They don't have the resources to continuously monitor. Courts have also made it clear that brokers and shippers are part of the safety chain. Yes, we have a case going up to the Supreme Court because we have some big courts in our country that are divided on this issue, and they're going to collide about it. It's going to be really excited. I just talked to the plaintiff attorney that's arguing, super cool, smart guy that's arguing this case, and I think the hearings are in January. And then maybe we'll get a decision. Well, Supreme Court, they don't move very fast. Maybe we'll have a decision by next April. But we don't know which direction this is going to go and whether a broker shipper can be sued for hiring a dangerous carrier. But right now they can be. And right now it's also bad publicity. Let's talk about the other problems too. So you're the last line of defense before the load hits the road. And I've always thought this way, and this is why a lot of brokers spend a lot of time digging into all the details of the carrier. Now they're not as much thinking I could get sued. They're more thinking like, I got to make sure this carrier delivers, doesn't get in an accident, ruin my day. It's not going to hold the load hostage, cause me all these problems, and cause cargo claims and has insurance. They're thinking about that kind of stuff. And it's because your safety data tightly correlates with how the carrier is going to perform. And that's also why you can't just ignore safety. If you ignore safety, it opens up the door. Imagine, you guys, just imagine, for those of you who look at safety data, imagine if your company came to you and said, we're not going to look at any more. It opens the door to all these carriers. But who are those carriers? Like, that scares the crap out of me because I quit. It would scare the shit out of me. It really would. Teo says lots of shippers pushing brokers to assume liability carrier. Absolutely. He's right. Radman says that's the day I'd resign. Me too. That would be really, really hard because how else would I be able to weed out carriers? You've got to be able to weed out the carriers. Now, it's not just trucking, right? Like, imagine yourself using one of those babysitter apps. Like, I want to weed out, like, and make sure I know who they are. Or how about you hiring a contractor to come to your house, like a roof contractor? We want to make sure that they're properly insured. They've got the right safety metrics. If I wish it was safety, but you guys know what I mean. There's other ways we got to vet contractors, not just in the trucking industry. Regulation doesn't require equal protection. And also what that means is it's not a guarantee. Just because there's a regulation doesn't mean it's safe. I mean, you guys see all the assholes running around with driver's licenses. Does that mean every driver that's allowed on the road with a driver's license is a safe driver? No way. Have you guys seen the way Radman drives? Just kidding. He's a great driver. You know, one thing that Kanisha said is the problem is the FMCSA doesn't do enough, nor do they have bodies to manage because they're 88% of the carriers are unrated. Like, what the fuck are they doing over there? I know. So ignoring vetting is a liability, a reputational risk, makes it look bad with your customers. So many reasons. And I give you the slides so you can fight back with some of your executives who are receiving really old, outdated legal advice that I definitely do not believe in. And of course, you all know this very well. So for those of you who are in a compliance role and you don't view yourself as like super expert, super advanced, make sure to pop some of your questions right now in the chat because you've got access to a pool of super advanced people, even if they're not relevant. So building a stronger vetting process, you all know this. Verify beyond FMCSA rating. Review the inspections of violations, the basics data. Don't forget that this data changes. So just because a carrier looks good, remember Erica's snapshot point? Carrier looks good at this moment in time, legit next month, they could have no insurance and have 10 speeding tickets. So what are you going to do to make sure you know what that carrier is doing next month? Confirm insurance directly with the insurance broker. I love doing that. I pick certain lanes, certain type of carriers and commodities to do that for. Food. Radman probably has to do that a lot because he's running hazmat. And I think Mark Funk does that a lot. I think you do some high value stuff, Mark. So I think you have experience in that too. And of course, document your verification steps and minimal exceptions to your policies. So let's talk about exceptions. This is how I handle exceptions. Because people, yep, Andrew's getting at it. People are getting to the exceptions and we all get exceptions. So here's what I've learned over the years with exceptions. I always tell my team, one, you have to designate who the exceptions are coming from. I don't like if I worked for, like, let's say I've mostly worked for big brokerages. So if it's a large brokerage, I only let exceptions come from like 2 people from carrier sales. You've got to vet them through your managers that are going to vet out BS. I don't want like little carrier sales reps talking to my compliance people all day long. So it's got to go through like an actual process. Some people use Zendesk as well, but to me, I don't like using that as much because I still want it to go through another layer of review. I don't want these little desk people asking. Go to your manager first, then you can come to me. So The other thing is if you get a lot of exceptions, there might be something up with your policy. And it might be time to change your policy, which is painful for you. But you guys all know that exceptions and the compliance policies, they all move with the market. Like our compliance vetting right now, imagine how different is it compared to what it was in 2021? 21. So like I like when I see a lot of exceptions and my team's like bogged down with them, I'm like, okay, the policy's not working. Or we've got a leadership problem. Like I have a carrier sales rep manager that's like pushing a low margin shipper and they're trying to get the cheapest and there's something going on over there. So you've got to investigate that too. But it could be that the market shift. So I want you to think about that too. And then I want you to think of something else. I had a conversation with somebody about this, is that your leadership's giving you a bunch of shit all day long. And you're like, we always know we're in compliance, we're in legal. You're always going to be the bad guy. I am always the bad guy. I am the industry bad guy constantly. And that is okay. I'm okay with that. That's my job, to protect you all from yourselves. That's what I tell people. But designate a few people that are allowed to actually, like if it's giving you a headache and it's making you miserable, designate a few people, and you can tell me what you think about this, to overrule you in writing. So I'm going to imagine somebody. I'm going to say, let's say Mark Funk's giving me shit every day. And he's like really angry at me. And it actually is impacting my career, my daily health, and my mentality. And so I'm like, all right, Mark Funk, if any of these people, any of these carrier sales reps want an exception, they have to go to Mark Funk. Mark Funk emails me and says, I would like to give an exception for this carrier. And then I make the exception and I document it in the TMS. So it goes everywhere, like everywhere in the notes. It's an exception carrier, all caps, Mark Funk exception, does not meet compliance policy, put an email. I mean, ever make it, and that it's annoying. And so allow just a few, not everybody, just a few people are allowed to make exceptions. One thing you'll learn when you do this is that the person who was like so loud, I hate Cassandra. She is the Black Widow of death. She's, what else have people called me? She's always in my way. I can't find good carriers because of her. And I'm like, you can go to Mark. Get an exception for Mark. Then Mark is part of the bad guy team because Mark knows. What does he know? What happens when Mark is given that power? We're hoping. Jason says it. His name's on it. And that's what I like. It slows them down, I promise you. If they're good, like actual business people. It slows them down. Accountability, dearly says. Because if something goes wrong, you can't come to Cassandra. It's going to be Mark Funk all over that. And I'm going to be like, you get Mark's on the stand, not me. Try to put me on the stand. I'm going to be like, well, Mark did it. You guys just know Mark's like very serious about compliance. He's probably not liking me using him as an example here. Mark says, in God we trust, everyone else bring data. No one wants that in writing. I'm responsible. So try that out if you're miserable. And sooner or later, stuff might go wrong, might not, but just gives you kind of like a reliever to the pressure. Curious of what other brokers' timeline expectation is. Oh, Eric drops like a bomb of a question. So how long does it take you guys to vet a carrier? Can you guys put in like the minutes, hours, whatever it is? Oh, Andrew, you're good. 1 to 5 minutes. I've done it for years. Yeah, that's true. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 to 5 minutes. Remember, you guys, this is very expert people. Remember, you're onboarding a new carrier, by the way. So we're looking at the paperwork. We don't know much about the insurance yet. Like this is like a brand new carrier company. 5 to 10 minutes, 5 to 20 minutes. Depends on the insights. Yep. Current expectations is 2 to 5 minutes. That's fast. I like the 15 to 30 minutes because don't forget about insurance. What if their insurance looks a little sketchy? Calls, RFI, sorry, you gotta wait. Yeah. SLA is less than 30 minutes, Mark Funk says. I would say 30. Thank you, Erica. I would say 30 expectation. You should tell people it takes 30 minutes. And then if it takes quicker, that's great. But like Tim Pool says, he has to make calls to verify insurance. And just it doesn't matter what platform you use for insurance, right? You can use the most expensive platform in the world. It's still going to be risky when you have a full truckload of food or frozen fish or something very expensive from Sephora, Louis Vuitton, baby food. You're really going to trust that certificate? You might not. Everybody has different. Yep, Kyle, alcohol, copper, especially copper. Yeah, verifying a VIN. That's also a good one. Duh, I should have said that too. 20 to 30 minutes. I think that's the expectation too. 2 to 5 minutes if it's a boring ass drive-in. We don't give a crap. Ah, Erica. Thank you, Erica. Erica says we're not giving copper to a brand new carrier though. Please don't do that. Please. I value not to new carrier. Thank you, Lauren. Rebecca says 5 minutes because we have an onboarding vendor with rule sets, and then we check key data points of fraud trends on the other sites. Yeah, I'm with you, Melissa. VIN is crucial, especially ELD connections. Yeah, Andrew, I'm surprised you said high value to new carrier. I couldn't do it. Because what if the new carrier has new ownership? And that's why they're asking you for high value. And the new ownership is hard to catch these days because they don't change their contact information. Like the scammers legit try to buy companies and keep everything the same. So you don't know. Nicholas says he's been having issues with VIN verification. I had a case where the carrier used AI to put the VIN in there. It's getting harder to tell them apart. But Nicholas, that's why I get you should get the they're using AI to put the VINs in their certificates of insurance? Because you really don't want to get those from the carrier, right? We go get those from the insurance broker. Oh, Brian says a good one. Vet all carriers if they're going to haul a critical load. They will be active in the TMS for anyone to use them after that first load. That is true. Maybe you're right, Brian, because we can't just sit there and vet a carrier. In my mind, I was like, drive in, spot load, quick haul. But you're right, then is active in your system for any load. Melissa, that's a good one. 25 loads before they do high value. I actually have a few customers that do that as well. It's good stuff to think about, you guys. Really good stuff. I'm just checking these comments really quick to make sure that nobody else has got. None of them are always right, Andrew. None of them. Even highway, MCP. It's just too much changes going on with and then you don't know what the exclusions are. And so it's really hard. So flaws in every platform for sure. And Nicholas, I don't think I fully understand your AI comment because you're getting the certs from the insurance brokers. They should have the VINs on them for you, hopefully. RMIS highway. Oh, my carrier packet. MCP. MCP. They're doing a lot of changes lately, and they're more affordable than RMIS and highway. They're trying their hardest to change a lot of things, and they're also integrated with carrier sure too. I think they're coming back from, for a while they kind of went stagnant, and now they're coming back. But good to know. Well, I think we've gotten to a really good spot. If anybody has any other compliance questions, Eric, that was a really good one, is how long should it take you to be vetting carriers? Because 5 to 10 minutes is tough, man. And then you don't forget, like for your team, unless you have one person doing all new carriers onboarding, your team is still also doing overrides and reviews from anything that got flagged overnight, things like that. So it's like, oh, wow. All right. As long as no one else has any other questions, we'll end early. And now I've given you guys lots of good stuff. We will post this video so that you guys have it. And if you want the presentation, I can send out the presentation as well. Heather says in previous calls, everyone was raving about highway being ahead of the times. And I think a lot of people, all three onboarding apps, I would say like, I think people really like Highway. It's very, very expensive. And MCP is advancing, more affordable. I don't know much about RMIS anymore, what they've been doing lately. I have, I'm kind of like behind the times. I'm trying to focus on CareAssure, but CareAssure works with all the onboarding apps. So I don't want to like get involved with all that business. They're great, all great companies, all great people. All right, very good. We will see you guys. I think next webinar, we're going to talk about sister companies and lease agreements. And still, people are still out there are falling for the, I leased it out to my, you got to ask this carrier for their insurance. I leased it out to them. They're responsible. Or I fired that carrier, take down the report. I fired that carrier. They were a sister company. Lease agreements. Phil, I feel the same exact way. So we're going to talk about that a bit too, so that we just clear it up. So if you guys are very advanced and you're like, Cassandra, I know all that, put your people on the webinar so they can learn, because all this stuff is hard to get. What are brother companies? Why aren't there brother companies, Sam? All right. Thank you guys very, very much for joining me. You are the best. And always, even if you're not a CareAssure customer, it doesn't matter. You can always reach out to me at Cassandra@CareAssure.com with questions, concerns, need help. We're always here to help and make a better industry for everybody. All right. Take care. Thank you.